It's now a week after Hurricane Ian made landfall, and we're here to share what's happened since.
Mama says namaste.
Mama says namaste.
Making a family can be easy and fun.
Oh yeah, but raising a family can be a whole different story.
From spouses to kids to the crazy daily grind, life often directs us away from connection and more into reactive chaos.
If you're tired of that cycle and are seeking something beyond the picket fence blues, this is the show for you.
I'm Ashley.
And I'm Nathan.
And we're here to take you from chaos to clarity by bringing awareness and intention into your home, not waiting for one day, and highlighting how
the uniqueness in each of us strengthens all of us.
Take a deep breath in, then let's start a brand new day. With Mama says namaste.
So last week was a doozy.
Yeah, we were talking about our mindset going into Ian.
And now, what's our mindset coming out of Ian?
Oh, man. What has changed post-Ian? Well, I'll say this. We rode the storm out. Everything was fine. We were fortunate as we tend to find ourselves in between bands of big storms. And Key Largo was a good place for us to ride it out. And I'm glad we did there because it would have been not fun elsewhere.
Yeah, I really am grateful for where we were and that we had. It rained, but it was minimal. It was really minimal. And so we were in a safe spot for the storm, but of course we were glued to the TV, as you heard on the podcast last week. Not TV, but
YouTube now.
I was gonna say TV. Geesh, I don't know when I had regular cable going, but
come on, 90s girl.
That's like what happens at the restaurants still. Yeah, sorry, I've been out of it. All right, anyway, we were glued to the screens watching the weather and getting the play-by-play of when it was hitting and how and where and checking in with everybody. My goodness, you can end up having, all the people that come out of the woodwork that all of a sudden are caring, knowing that they have knowing that there's something big coming your way. So lots of conversations, lots of checking in.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Kind of that stuff. And so then we, storm's over. Got a couple pictures from neighbors. We saw the damage, but it was pretty minimal. It looked like just a lot of limbs down, but we couldn't, windows looked like they were all intact. Roof looked like it was in good shape, but, you never know till you get up there. And so we started driving.
And so, hold on.
I guess no. This is Wednesday, so Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday.
We get some video and some pictures, but we at this point had hauled our camper on down.
So we were up we were up in Key Largo on Wednesday. So Thursday morning we get up and we move our camper and come back down to Bahia Honda, where we had gotten the all clear to be able to return. And so we came back here and we went ahead and started setting up and just checking out, the devastation here. Thankfully, again, I'm grateful that so much was spared. And we are in the Keys, in these little islands in South Florida. Their ocean, the beaches are forever impacted.
Well, and I always kind of moan and groan when they evacuate us for tropical storm warnings, because I'm like, we could do that in a camper. I've been in some wind in campers with the family before, so I'm not scared of it.
Yeah.
And after seeing what was left of Bahia Honda, I'm glad to leave.
Yeah.
I don't want to stay here. I'm happy
the people that stayed here in houses were also saying, it was a good idea that you left on this.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think I would have wanted to be here. But see, that's the tough thing about making these calls is things change really rapidly, and you don't know how things are going to land or where they're going to land or how big they're going to be until you're kind of in the middle of it. And so you have to think ahead of what would be the worst case and what do I want to avoid. And man,
well, that's that's the following your fear through.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe that there is a balance there. I mean, because you can get so lost in speculation and worry and thinking of all the worst things that can happen that you spiral yourself downward, and you waste a lot of precious time and energy in something that's not serving anybody and is no good. On the flip side, sometimes ignoring it and being in complete denial can be very stress inducing as well, as your subconscious goes, wait a second, we need to talk this out.
Right.
And so, not saying anything or not coming to any plan, then when it happens, it's, oh my gosh, I'm not prepared at all. And so, yeah, we kind of were doing that. We were going back and forth with, okay, worst case scenario, what are we willing to lose? And we talked about that last week and how we came to the conclusion to not go up to Venice beforehand to prep it, but to just plan for coming to assess the damage afterward. So anyway, so this is Thursday. We get back here. We see everything that happened here. It was a full day already. We decided to go ahead and stay, get a good night's sleep. And then the next morning, Nathan, Clara, and Elle went back up to Venice while Jules and I stayed here. And of course, part of the reason for this was because in the midst of all of this, as we're trying to get back to Bahia Honda on Thursday, our cat, Jasper, starts having issues for the second time. We have already rushed him to the animal hospital once in our stay here, and now he is being rushed to the animal hospital again.
Yeah, I mean, I thought culvert cats were supposed to be made of Kevlar.
Nope.
Apparently, you got to feed them the right food so they can go to the bathroom.
Yes, Mr. Sensitive has got a whole new diet now that he gets to eat. And so the amazing animal hospital down here has been wonderful to work with, and the vet had asked to keep him overnight. So Jules and I were staying back because we had a cat to pick up in the afternoon on Friday, as well as me having a coaching client that was a first-time session. So I wanted to make sure that I was present and able to work with the client as well. So as we stayed put to do our work and get things done and help out around Bahia Honda, Nathan, Clara, and Elle drove up to Venice.
The zigzaggy trip. And I was feeling pretty good about it. We ran up, we saw some damage up through the Keys as we were leaving, where it had gone over the road, and they cleaned that up pretty quickly on Highway 1. Where the ocean had gone over there. But, everything was kind of starting to go back to normal. We hit the Everglades, and it was still looking okay. I thought, oh, man, we're golden. We got this. I mean, I'm close to Naples at this point. And then we start pulling into Naples. And I'm like, oh, no. And so I decided to just hop on the interstate so I figured that'd be the fastest way to go because there were a lot of stoplights, and I figured there'd be no power through there. So I got on the interstate, and we started cruising. And we saw a lot of damage. We saw a lot of tree damage. But what was scary as we were going up was the rivers. Every river crossing that we went, man, the water was just right on the top of the bridges, or just the bottom of the bridges where we were. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there was nothing but, we were floating on top of water. There was no space between us, and it was churning out. And so we get on through and get off of the interstate. And, you see some damage off of the interstate as you're going through, and you're thinking, man, look at all those trees down. And you see some neighborhoods that are peeking through now that all the leaves are blown off, and you can see what's behind the trees. And as we got off the streets, it kind of started to sink in that, there was a lot of tree damage, a lot of wind damage. And so we get into our cul-de-sac, and it's pretty butchered. It was blown around really good. But the good thing was, at least in Venice where we were, and I didn't see a lot of it in Northport either, but I didn't see a lot of blue tarps and roof, where people's roofs were blown off, where it was just really strong, sheer wind. But it felt like and sounded like and looked like they had just been so soggy that 100-mile-an-hour wind just nudged anything over. And everything was kind of leaning. Even our bamboo was leaning that we had planted. So it had gotten soft, leaned, and then resettled. And so it was hard to see. It was a lot of destruction. It was a lot of debris everywhere. And we started cleaning up, and got it cleaned up, and realized pretty quickly that, by the end of the day, we had knocked out most of it. We were pretty well done. And so we were able to, help our neighbors get some things cleaned up. And I think that's what was, pretty cool is, while we were there, we were it seemed like everybody was running on adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're just doing what you got to do. So Buddy and I had climbed up on a roof and cut a bunch of roofing off of a neighbor's house and hauled fencing to the front yard so they could get hauled away. Just kind of tidying things up so it can get put back together. So it was a wild experience to see how Florida responds and how the people respond to a catastrophe like this, because it was it really knocked Florida good. It was, I wouldn't say knocked it to its knees, but it was a good knockout for Florida, at least our area.
And that's something that props to our neighbors. We live on a street where I think that in the scope of life and us finding community, there are a lot of our neighbors that we probably would not have brushed arms with at any other point or come across at any other point. Lots of differing viewpoints and different lifestyles that live on our block. And yet I think it's a good representation of Florida being a very mixed bag of who's there, and also a mixed bag of who's there all year round. There's a lot of people that are the snowbirds that come down. And what we've seen on our street is that everybody takes care of each other, and those people that leave, it's almost like the rest of the neighborhood just kind of assumes the property, or like it takes over the property, then recognizes, okay, hey, I'm going to be eyes for these people and let them know what's going on. And so it's been really great to see how much of that has banded together. I mean, next door is constantly people saying, hey, just letting you know I'm in this area and I'm willing to go scout houses, message me and let me know where you're at. And people just helping each other out and keeping eyes on each other's houses and taking pictures and stepping up in community. Yeah.
And, banding together to clean up, because it's got to get cleaned up.
Right.
And so, we did that. And it was a good experience. I mean, it was sad. There was some tragedy that we found. One of our bird boxes, we ended up finding a family of squirrels that was pretty beat up, and had tried to ride the storm out in there and had not made it. And there were other casualties like our fencing. We had to really struggle to get that put back together and standing up straight, but we got her up. And just me and Clara and Elle, between the three of us, we just started knocking it out. What was wild was the water table was pretty high. We would dig down to replant some of our plants that had been broken down or broken off. And, there'd be standing water 8 to 10, 12 inches down, which just means there's nowhere for that water to go.
Yeah.
Now, by now, it's kind of seeped down, but, it made us really, gave us for a long trip back. I'll say that.
Well, no, so after that, you guys were able to help so much, and we are so grateful. We recognize that not everybody fared as well, and we have friends that are dealing with major destruction or not able to even access their house because of bridges out and different things like that. And so, a lot of stuff happened already. And then to top it off, on Friday night while Nathan was gone, both of us had phone calls at 3 a.m. We're thinking, what in the world? And it was Sarasota County with messages saying that the levee had been compromised near Mayaca River, and you could anticipate up to 15-foot flooding to happen, and so to seek safety and take necessary precautions. And so Friday night, Mayaca River levees broke and water flooded so much of, I guess,
closed Interstate 75,
South Central Florida.
Yeah, Southwest. Yeah. And just ran down the Mayaca River, and it's just a big sponge through there. And we were already sitting on a big sponge of sand.
Mm-hmm.
And so it had nowhere to go but over the bridges. And so over the bridges it went, and stopping all the traffic on 75 going north and southbound, and rerouted that all on Tamiami.
Took away two campgrounds we used to love that we visited in Florida. Both of them are completely underwater now. Yeah.
But it was interesting because we ended up having to backtrack and drive all the way up almost to Tampa and then cut across to the middle of the state in Lake Okeechobee. And it wasn't until we got to the bottom east corner of Lake Okeechobee that I started to see gas stations that were open and operating. It was pretty devastating all the way across, and of course the hurricane went over that way. And I saw lots of limbs down, lots of piles of limbs people had gathered up and pulled to the side of the road, and lots of power lines and electrical crews running around. Matter of fact, my neighbor, he texted me a day or two ago and said, "Hey, I see you've got power on. That's awesome." I was like, "Man, go inside if you need it. Go over there and knock yourself out," because he still did not have power. So if it was a difficult power job, they're leaving those guys alone until a more advanced crew can get in. So it's just, it was a lot to take in, but it showed the, kind of the mindset and the moving forward that's required to live daily. I was thinking about, the hurricanes of our lives. We all have these hurricanes that come through and hit our life. And we can choose to spend the rest of our lives just staring and reminiscing about the destruction, or we can choose to, change our perspective and look at what could be new, or what this makes possible, or what today brings. And so, kind of brought that out in our, as the girls and I were driving down, and just kind of recognizing how easy it is to say, "Oh my gosh, look at this," and "Oh my gosh, look at that," and it is. I mean, it's destructive. It was a lot of water and a lot of wind, but to move out of that and to move into a new, that's what Florida's going to have to do, and I think Florida's pretty good at that. I was thinking about that today as I was riding my bike on this key, and this key was hit by the biggest hurricane that's ever been recorded in the country. And it's called the Labor Day hurricane. And, 200-mile-an-hour wind.
Oh, the one in 1935.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that when it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For some reason, I remembered that date.
And 200-mile-an-hour sustained winds. I mean, pushes a locomotive off the track kind of wind. And you got to think of the trees that are blown away, and how, living down here, it must feel like you're on a crater of the moon. It's never going to get back. But then, life and time has a way of healing itself and recovering and coming right back. And I mean, we're living on an island that was, smashed to bits, and is still thriving now. And
was smashed to bits. I mean, again, 5 years ago.
5 years ago, and
right.
Has come back. And so it just reminded me of the tenacity and the perseverance of a good life and a good mindset. If you have the mindset of look at all this, all the sea lavender, it'll never be the same again. If that's where my heart and my mind stand as a place to settle, then that's the way it's going to feel. But if it, peels open that, well, now, the sand has been moved around, there's new beaches and new sandbars to explore. There's all kinds of stuff out there for animals to live in that may need to be pulled out, maybe need to be left. We'll see and go explore that and what that brings. And so it's just like a fire, the opportunity brings new life opportunity with it as well. And so that destruction kind of has there's another side to that coin. Right.
I mean, it's one of those forced resets we get in our lives. And oftentimes we do get that. And we've talked about, my dad in his book, 48 Days to the Work You Love, talks about how there's an analogy of there's an old man sitting on the porch, and he's got a dog next to him that's just whining and whining. And some traveler walks by and hears this dog whining. He stops and he says, "Is that your dog?" Says, Yeah. "Why is he crying?" "Oh, he's sitting on a nail." "Well, why doesn't he move?" "Well, I guess it doesn't hurt bad enough." And I mean, how often we go through life sitting on a nail and complaining about our situation and frustrated and angry with where we're at, yet unwilling to make that final shift. And then it happens by way of a natural disaster, a divorce, a death, a firing from your job, or whatever. And all of a sudden you're jarred into the reality that you've got to reset. And you can look at it as a reset and an opportunity for a clean slate on what you want to create. Or you can look at it as, this is the end. Well, man, for some of us, living in what you may have been living in before, sometimes it's not the end. It's the beginning of a new life. And I was actually just looking at the website of someone who I was just getting to know a little bit more about, and she's navigating in dealing with helping women with body image, and instead of looking at and this is the terminology she used on her website, she says instead of looking at it as weight loss, look at it as life gain. I mean, look at that perspective shift. So, what can we look at and where can we go from here? We've got something that a hurricane happened. Well, as we talked about last week, I mean, there are elements of what is. What will be, will be. We cannot, we could not have redirected that hurricane or stopped the hurricane from coming. Okay, so we're on the other side. What does it make possible? Where can we go from here? What little nitpicky things that we're frustrated and irritated about have we set aside? I just was right before this, I saw a news article about, bipartisan, that, Biden and DeSantis are going to be meeting under bipartisan, just to focus on the hurricane and to look for a solution and to put their differences aside. And I mean, oh my goodness, how many divisions do we have? How many frustrations, and how many of us have gotten caught up in our anger at the opposite viewpoint and all of these different things. And now it's okay, whatever. I don't care who you voted for. Your roof is bare right now, and we need to cover it with a tarp.
And you don't have any power or food.
Right. Yeah. I'm not talking politics. I'm not talking, whether or not you have a vaccine or not, or whatever your controversial thing is. What we're talking about is, do you have food? Are you able to survive today? And so often when we get jarred out of our reality, sometimes it makes way for creating a better one.
Yeah. I hate it that this is how things come together, but oftentimes pain and struggle is what brings everybody back into a place of centeredness. Mm-hmm. Kind of burns away the ego and leaves only what's necessary and the truth. And so, that's what, it's funny to come down here, and the Keys are, they're huffing right back to get right back to where they were. There's a lot that's been moved around. There's a lot that's changed. But I think that's true for life in general. Mm-hmm. Life is always going to move things around and change regardless of what we want and how we want things to be. And if you can go through life and going with the flow and learning as you go, I think that's the best way to approach it, rather than getting so mired up and frustrated with what was lost, or how something has been taken away or it'll never be the same. That type of, if you look at things through those eyes, boy, it's a shadowy place.
Mm-hmm. What may be taken away is you sitting in pessimism over the noisy neighbor next door, as you now see them in a new light because you're wanting to care for their well-being after a hurricane. Maybe what's been taken away is your frustration and anger about the traffic on the way to work, as now you're sitting in traffic recognizing the loss and the flooding around you. Those things that are taken away are sometimes the best things in our lives, to weed out the muck and to give an opportunity for fresh water, a freshness to flow through. So if first and foremost, with the hurricane being obviously very very in our faces here in Florida, we wanted to look for how can you help. An easy thing is just doing something like donating to the Red Cross, and that can be an easy thing that people can do. Not everybody can be here in person and be able to do something. And there are lots of different organizations out there. And as I was kind of trying to look through, I kind of landed on just GoFundMe, GoFundMe.com. Anybody can go up there and start a campaign. And if I just search under GoFundMe.com, if I search Hurricane Ian, you see tons of posts. Help, my whole family has been devastated by this. I'm a disabled family. I could use some help here. Trying to help and rescue all of the animals and gather them and get supplies for them. There are so many different people banding together, trying to create these things for people right there on the ground, for their communities, for their families. And I encourage you to go on there. Just go to GoFundMe.com, search the keywords Hurricane Ian, and find the campaign that speaks to you. It may be that in looking through that, you discern that, hey, it's a family that also needs clothes, and you have a whole pile of clothes that might fit the bill for this family that you could send their way. It doesn't always have to be financial, but it's a great start to just go and to see these micro groups of people already banding together, seeking help, and looking for ways to serve each other.
Yeah, I mean, use your discretion, obviously, but just doing a little digging and having a little conversation might you might find that helping somebody specifically that's in your face is very rewarding,
right?
Rather than just giving to the General Red Cross and hoping that your dollar gets to the person that needs it.
Exactly. If you can't help a million, help one, right?
There you go.
Right. And look at this as another reminder for what do you need to hurricane away out of your life? What needs to be washed away for a clean slate that you've been sitting in for a while, that has been your norm, that has been your routine, that maybe needs to be readjusted, jarred out of you? Snap back to reality on what the priority is. I mean, nothing like this for us to be able to say, us making the decision even before it happened, our things are not as valuable as our lives. We would rather be out of Venice at this time than for us to be there just trying to save a thing, because our people and our animals mean something to us. And that helped us to remember our priorities. So as you are moving forward, pay attention this week. What are you sitting in? What are you surrounding yourself with? Is it something that's really fueling you forward? Or are you lost in frustration, negativity, pessimism about things outside of your control? Or sitting and complaining about something that is in your control and you're just sitting on that nail? What is it going to take to hop off and to create the better life that you're dreaming of versus hoping that it's going to be dumped in your lap?
Yeah, because it will continue to show itself in your life until you figure it out. I mean, the hurricane season comes every year. You just don't know how big and strong or how many. And
we
so
always get those opportunities for the lesson. And that comes in many different shapes and forms, whether that's a natural disaster or that toxic person that doesn't quite get out of your life. Maybe there's an opportunity. Maybe there is something to learn. Look at what the patterns are, what keeps recurring in your life, and what you may be able to learn from that that's going to help you to be a better person. And recognize that as you do that, you can start to see and understand and be grateful for the impact others have on your life. I mean, both positive and negative, because it's part of what makes you who you are and helps you grow and discern who you want to be. So, love each other. Hold one another tight to this week. And remember, the uniqueness in each of us strengthens all of us.
Namaste.
1, 2, 3. Up with the rising sun, already on the run. Mama says namaste. Life is a tangled mess, and you don't have to stress. Mama says namaste. 'Cause today I will stand up and be all the change that I want to see in this world. Boys and girls, you gotta have to stand up to be free. Namaste in your heart. Take a deep breath in and let's start a brand new day. With Mama says namaste.